All right. Hello, once again, everybody. This is Bob Turner. I'm back with another great episode of the Summit Podcast. I couldn't be more happy. I could be happier to have Ben Newman in the house today, my coach, my mentor, the guy that made me believe that I could have a seat at the table in the personal development and the coaching world. So I'm jacked right now. I got goosebumps. And I'm fired up over here to have Ben in the house. For those of you that you may not know, Ben's one of the top 5 performance coaches in the world. Uh, he's written how many books, Ben? 8, 9, 10. I've got a bunch of them. He's a speaker. He's a podcaster. He's the host of The Burn. He's very quick to tell you that you say, I'm not a speaker, I'm a coach. But you are a speaker, and I do enjoy hearing you speak. You're a friend, you're a husband, and most importantly, you're a dad. And I've enjoyed seeing how you do that while you manage everything else. So Ben Newman, welcome to the Summit. Thanks for being here.
Well, Bob, it is awesome to be with you. I always enjoy our interactions, and I'll tell you, I'll actually spin the introduction back to you. You know, when I think about the time that we've spent together, be it from Uncommon Live to coming to boot camps to to coaches, you know, there have been some really great moments that we've had to sharpen iron together. But I think the one that was most meaningful for me, where I learned the most about not only your heart and your passions, but how you felt about being a father, was when we sat right across from Gillette Stadium when I was out there for Patriots training camp, and you drove hours to come and, you know, hang and have dinner with me, which meant the world to me. And we sat there, and, you know, your daughter was going through things that were painful and hard for her, and I could just see the emotion in your eyes when you talked about being a father and how important that was and how you'd do anything for your daughter. And then, you know, for us to then talk about taking people to the edge, and then you having the courage to go throw your first event. I mean, I could go on and flip this mic and make this an episode for you, a personal episode for you on your own show. But Bob, I've always appreciated how you show up in life, the father that you are, the coach that you are, and the action that you choose to take. So I've been really looking forward to this.
Well, I appreciate that. And that it's, you know, I've got that. My goal was to speak on stage 6 times this year, and I think it's been 4, and we're getting there, right? But
year's not over.
It's not over. Right? So, but I always start, and it chokes me up, and it will now, and she'll probably see this. That I start everything I do with, I'm Bailey's dad, because at the root of it all, that's really, like, nothing else matters, right? That's what we signed up for, is what I always say. And so I always say, if I'm going to do one thing right in life, I want to be a good dad. And I see that in you. And you're jumping on, you're flying all over, and you're flying back in from games, landing, getting back home so the kids can see you, so you can have breakfast with them. It just means a lot to see someone that's performing at a high level to not have things take a back seat, particularly family. Good for you.
Well, I appreciate that, Bob.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's about a year ago now, you were injured on the sideline, and you had to interrupt your unrequired workout, right? So I said, you know what? When he restarts that, I'm going to start with him, right? So I did. And I got about 88 days into it, and the lower back L5, S1 stuff started and knocked me out. Matt Elias, a good friend of ours, another coach in the program, stayed with you, okay? And I believe he still is. But
yes, he has.
You are closing in on a couple thousand days of the unrequired workout. Tell me what that's been like.
You know, I believe that no matter what happens to us in life, and we all face challenge and adversity, and challenge and adversity is truly where we build our greatest strength. But no matter what happens, you have to adapt, adjust, and attack. And what you're referencing was a period of time where, you know, I had already been doing the unrequired workout for over 1,000 days. And next thing you know, I'm on the sideline with Michigan State as their performance coach, and we're playing Ohio State, and our starting safety slides, hits me in the ankle, and my ankle blows up like a softball. The team doctor after the game said it was the gnarliest ankle she'd ever seen. They put me through the x-ray machine at Spartan Stadium. I mean, it was really wild. And long story short, a couple weeks later, from just not treating it the right way, or actually from treating it by burning myself with a homemade rice sock for a hot cold contrast treatment.
Yep.
I ended up getting a staph infection. And I ended up having that staph infection removed. It got to the point where one morning I couldn't even stand on it. I had still been doing this workout every day. And I went to the hospital that day. They literally removed the staph infection. They cut me open. And that ended really the regular streak of the unrequired. But when I look back on it, I never really stopped, because for 10 straight days, including that day I had surgery, my wife brought in dumbbells into the hospital, which she still can't believe. And she brought in 15-pound dumbbells, and I did 1,000 curls in my hospital bed the day that I had surgery. And I knew that the 1,000 curls, after I did them, took 45 minutes.
Sure.
And the unrequired workout took 45 minutes. So I said, well, I adapt, adjust, attack. I did the same amount of the work. So it continued. And then I got back into the unrequired. So it was really just 10 days of 1,000 curls. But today was day 1,975. And I don't say that to impress anybody. It's to impress upon the point that you have a choice to be disciplined in your life, not just for you, but because of the example that you set for somebody else.
Right.
And I think that's the important key, is that we all find that burn that lies inside of us, knowing that somebody's watching, that Bailey has watched you. Bailey has watched you have success. Bailey's watched you do Ironman. She's watched your body break as a result of what you decided to do, and it's made her stronger. And I think so for everybody listening, you know, when you face that period of time, whether it's a streak of workouts or a challenge at work, don't succumb to the challenge. Say, how can I adapt? How can I adjust? And what can I do to continue to attack?
Love it. Love it. Yeah, that was something else when I saw you stick with that. I said, well, and it's motivating, it's inspiring, right? And you keep people going. One of the things that I learned, and guys, if you don't know, I'm always talking about Ben's Coach to Coaches program. See, I printed my workbook, Ben. And but I'm a Ben Newman certified coach, and I've enjoyed having that designation and credential, frankly. And one of the pillars that we work from, and I'm saying this more for the others instead of you, Ben, is personal, professional, and acts of service. And I've branched out and kind of called it legacy as well. And you wrote this book, Leave Your Legacy. And legacy to me, we just lost a dear friend here in my hometown. He was a basketball guy, a pillar of the community. And life got cut short, age 50, by cancer. This guy left a legacy. Okay. So when I was thinking about sitting down with you, Ben, and talking about, hey, if I get a chance to chat with Ben Newman for a few minutes, what do I want to ask him? And so I want to ask you, for everyone else, what do you want your legacy to be? You go hard in the paint, dude. Like, you go hard. You're up early. You have long days. You don't give up. I don't see you come off the gas at all. You are impassioned to make a difference. Okay, so I guess I'll be quiet. Just say, Ben, what do you want? I know what your burn is, and you can talk about that as well. But what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, my burn is, but you in saying that may cause others to be a little bit curious. But my burn was watching my mom battle a disease called amyloidosis that there's still no cure for. My mother passed away 38 years ago, 11 days before my 8th birthday. Amyloidosis is a disease. Every single listener, Bob, myself, we have amyloids in our muscles. If you have an excess of amyloids, it eats away at your muscles and it's going to take your life. And each and every single one of us, have those amyloids. And my mom had the excess. It ate away at her muscles. It took her heart eventually, which took her life. And that's my fight. My burn is to say, I'm a 46-year-old man. My mother died at 38. I'm going to choose to not waste a day as a result of how my mother lived. And so that's the burn that causes me to fight every single day to one day leave the legacy. I used to say 1 billion people. Now, with the number of coaches that we've certified and individuals we've been able to continue to partner with, now, as a result of being challenged from another member of our alumni, Coach Ted Rath, he said, I think it should be 2 billion because of all of us who are now fighting with you. And right. So now it's the legacy of impacting 2 billion people. And for me, that's what I know. If I choose and Bob chooses and other coaches choose and other individuals, whether you hear this podcast or you go through Coach to Coaches or another program that we have, that we're all in this fight together to go impact this 2 billion. And that's really the legacy. And I know personally, if I show up to be my best to fight to that 2 billion, I'm not going to be a perfect dad. I'm not going to be a perfect husband, but I'm going to fight like hell to be the best dad and the best husband I can be and to impact my family. And so I think for all of us, if we fight for that bigger purpose and bigger impact that's bigger than us, we're going to impact those that are close to us, but we're going to have a significant impact together. And that's really the legacy.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I appreciate that. One of the things that I've been very grateful for with you is how free you are with your material for us coaches that are getting going, that are trying to get the playbook. Hey, how do I monetize this thing? How do I figure this out? What do I have to do? Show me the way. Is it cold outreach? Is it sending videos? Is it sending the text? What's the secret, right? And you've been very free with that stuff, and I appreciate that. I want to take you back to when you started. Okay. And I know how you started. You got a chance to, but I want to take you back and like, there wasn't a Ben Newman. There was no Ben Newman for you. How did you not give up on the tough days? How did you stay with it even when it got dark and you were saying, hey, maybe I should just do the financial gig? How'd you stay with it?
Well, for me, it was that not wasting a day. I didn't call it the burn back then, but that burn was ignited inside of me. And even if I go back to being a kid, even if I go back to, my high school days, everything I did to honor my mom. I did to not waste my days. I did to fight to be the best that I could be. And so for me, when I was looking at that transition of, hey, I'm running a financial services organization, I got paid to speak for the first time in 2006. I didn't even know that this could be a career. When they
Right.
offered me $500 in '06, I'm like, is that even a thing? You want to pay me to come and speak and tell you what I'm doing as a financial advisor? And, so back then it was just chasing the passion for the right reasons, being willing to say yes because of excitement and passion for an opportunity, not because of money. Yes, I
Right.
run a for-profit business. I ran a for-profit business back then, but it
Right.
was doing it for passion and the right reasons. And that's what fueled me. That's what fueled me was watching my mom not waste her days, choosing to not waste my days, and then choosing to be disciplined every day to find out how can I create more of these opportunities to say yes with this passion that lies inside of me. And I would just say to everybody listening, every single one of you has been wildly successful at some period of time in your life. Some of you, you're currently in the middle of it right now. Some of you, as tough as this is to hear, you were only wildly successful for 2 days. But in those 2 days, you showed yourself how successful you could be. But for whatever reason, you decided to go back to your old mindset rather than staying and leaning in. And so for me, it's just been this pursuit, Bob, that how can I get better and how could I get better and how could I never stop? It's why I still have two coaches. It's why I read books every day, because I believe in a never finished mindset. And so when you become obsessed with chasing this passion, when you become obsessed with this best version of yourself, and when you become obsessed with knowing it doesn't have to be about money and money is a byproduct, or winning championship rings is a byproduct of showing up every day, I just get excited to keep showing up every day.
Yeah. Second person today that's used the word obsessed. Second high performing person I've talked with today that's used the word obsessed. And the other person, it was an email. Are you obsessed? That's how it started. That's what I saw in the title line.
Well,
And
so let's think about something, okay? So everybody, if you're watching the video version of this interview, right? Look over Bob's right shoulder, right? Do you become an Iron Man because you just kind of like running? Do you become an Iron Man because you just kind of like dabbling and swimming? No,
right,
you have to become obsessed
you do.
with the training and the process. I can't imagine in any of those races where you received any of those medals. And for those of you, if you're listening, I mean, it's probably 50 medals that are behind, but for running and Ironmans, it's all on his wall. You were obsessed
Yeah.
with the process, right? You didn't skip training runs. Nobody who showed up to become an Ironman was skipping training. You
Yeah.
had to do the training. And
Right.
so I just encourage people, when you've been successful, reverse engineer what caused my success, and then have a willingness to never give up, to have an own it mentality and never finished mindset, to have that obsession to keep figuring out how great you can be. The byproduct will be winning at very high levels.
That's great. And thank you for that. I was obsessed with it, and it was hard. It's been hard to step away from it a little bit. It makes it hard to go out for a run because, like, hey, I don't want to put my sneakers on if we're not going 10, right? But the fact of the matter is, the training's not there to go 10 right now. So we're in that mode. Um, Anybody that's been around you for a bit, Ben, has heard standard over feelings. And we got into a discussion on our coach to coaches was the alumni call yesterday. I heard people were talking about standard over feelings. And so tell me that for the listeners, talk a little bit about the standard and what's the difference between, say, a standard and a habit and discipline.
Yeah. So a standard is let me actually go back to, because I think this is an important piece of this. So standard over feeling is, don't allow your feelings to dictate how you show up. Choose to allow your standards to determine the story that you write. And so we all know. So if I go back to each and every single person listening, whether it lasted 2 days, you're in the middle of it right now, or you've been on a run that's lasted the last 2 years, you all know what you need to do to perform at your highest possible level. That's your standard. Standard over feelings. When I interviewed with Nick Saban in Tuscaloosa, Alabama in 2017, before he hired me to be the performance coach, the mental conditioning coach for Alabama football, where I spent 5 years, we won a couple national championships. That statement is what kept me in that building for 5 years, Bob. I didn't go speak at training camp one time. I was there 15, 20 times a year, because he asked me, what are you going to bring to the program? And I said, standard over feelings, which wasn't really something new to the organization, but it was in alignment with the standards he had set to have the highest possible level of expectations, that you're never going to figure out how great you can be if you ever quit, if you ever stop. And so when you live to your standards, that's where the habits and disciplines become part of that standard, right? Like, here's how I operate. So you have to have a high level of habits, high level of discipline. But the standard is, you say, this is the way that we operate, and we will not go below that level of expectation. And over time, you build standards where, by living to that standard, I'm going to say it again, I said it earlier, the byproduct is winning at very high levels. So it's not temporary habits, it's not temporary discipline. It's a standard that this is the way we do things. And if anybody listening would have ever come to a practice with me at Alabama, you would have heard Coach Saban say all the time, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And that was the standard.
Love it. Love it. I want to talk to you next. I want to ask you about, there's got to be times when there's a chink in the arm, right? Where you're just not feeling it. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, today's Wednesday. So Monday, I was coming down here. I finished basement, do my calls and everything. This is my setup. And I do a Monday morning live for my group, like you do. I took a page out of your book. And it's been slow to grow, right? And I said to Wendy, I said, all right, I'm going downstairs and do my live, and probably nobody will watch. and then I had to use the bathroom. I came back out, and I had a minute myself, and I said, all right, I'm going down there to burn that place flat. She says, that's not a boy. So, like, sometimes we can bring ourselves out of it, right? And it's just a moment like that. And I'm in there thinking about it. I'm like, that's not me. I can't show up for a call like that. You do a lot of calls, and there's got to be some times when you're just, man, I'm just not up for it today. How do you get yourself ready?
I think about the burn.
Yeah.
I think about the fact, as tough as this is for somebody's ears right now, and it's maybe not what they expected, the way you paint the table of who I am and books and sidelines and things I get to do. Like, I'm a human being. There's plenty of days that I don't want to do it. But I realize that I am that 46-year-old man now with a mom who passed at 38. And I've been given those 8 extra years that she never got. So for me to waste a damn day, it ain't going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't mean that I don't have tough days and stressful days, or days that I don't feel like doing it. But when I don't feel like doing it, I raise up to the standard, and you better believe that I do it. And
Right.
that's the standard. The standard is that burn inside of me is what's going to remind me that my mom didn't get the days that I've been given. I mean, my mom passing away 11 days before my 8th birthday, my son being 16 years old. That's 8 extra years that I got with my son that my mom never got. And you think I'm going to waste a day? Doesn't make me a perfect father. Doesn't mean that sometimes I don't raise my voice and have to apologize for it because I had to ask him to brush his teeth 100 damn times. But the reality is I've been given this extra time, so I'm not going to waste a day. And, my burn's not going to fuel anybody listening. But when you understand the power of the burn and you understand the power of your burn, which it's
Right.
maybe sacrifice somebody made for you. Mom and dad had to have 2 jobs for you to be able to now have the opportunity that you're living in. How could you ever waste a day? And when
Right.
you think about it that way, on the days you don't feel like it, you say standard over feelings. I will not allow my feelings to dictate. The standard is if my parents had to have 2 jobs to give me this opportunity, I'm going to own this day and give this day my very best. Isn't going to make that day perfect, but I'm going to give it my best. And I think that is the opportunity that we have every day.
Yeah, that's awesome. A funny thing happened. I've heard you tell the story a number of times about how you got your start speaking, and your high school basketball coach reached out, said, "Benny boy, you got to come down here and straighten these guys out," right? And it was funny. Wendy and I were driving down the road in the Jeep a couple months back in our hometown here in Wyndham. The kids just won the state basketball title last year, first time
Oh,
ever
that's awesome.
in hometown. And I said, I'm going to go. I want to go talk to those guys. I want to go talk to those guys because I want to deliver a message of so what, now what, right? So I had this idea, right? So we're driving, and I saw the high school basketball coach get out of his vehicle at the local gas station, and they got a red light. I said, there he is. I'm going to go talk to him right now. She's like, just got to wait for the light to change, Bob. Right? The light changed. Right up over the curb and over to the gas pumps. I jumped out and I said, "Hey, I'm Bob Turner. You might not remember me, but I'd love to come and talk to the guys." And he said, "Absolutely, let's make it happen." It was that easy. It was that easy. We're going to make it happen. And I got that from you, and I got the courage to do that from you. And I'm not afraid of a microphone or a camera going up to talk to somebody, but it wouldn't have occurred to me to do that and get involved if it hadn't been for you in that story. And so I appreciate that.
Well, once again, it goes back to how I started, which is why I wanted to turn the microphone back to you, which is I didn't drive over that curb to get to that gas pump to execute on that idea. You did. And, for you as a coach, for me as a coach, that's the greatest blessing when you can share a story that somebody remembers that impacts them to take action.
Sure.
Because without that, Bob, there is no impact. And so for me, every single one of those stories that I can have this tiny little part of makes me so happy. I remember us having that conversation, sitting there and building out the edge mindset for you. And next thing you know, Bob Turner's throwing the edge event and people showed up to the event. You know what I mean? I mean, for the number of seats that were there, it appeared to me that all those seats were full. Maybe there were a couple that were empty. And I remember back to that conversation, you almost looked at me like I was crazy when I was like, well, do it at the beginning of the year, Bob. You're like, the beginning of the year? Is that? And you got your excuses out of the way. And just like driving to that gas pump, sure, you wanted to make money on the event, but it was more the impact that drove the action. The impact I desired drove the action. The impact you desired with those young men that had won a championship to say, so what, now what? Don't be seduced by success. Let's go do it again, because the man you become as a result of it had nothing to do with money. Just like when my high school basketball coach called me and my work in sports started in 2011, 9 years I gave back to my high school. I never took a dime. I wouldn't have taken money from I would have said, give it back and go buy the kids some T-shirts or new uniforms or go buy them some new shoes or something. And I think once again, we live in a world where 2 things are happening. People want to get paid. Like, I want to get paid or I'm not showing up. Stop making it about money. And I promise you're going to make more money. And the next thing is, and Bob's an example of this, everybody tells you how great they want to be. Or I should say, many people will tell you how great they want to be. But then when we have a conversation with their action, we find out they really don't want it that bad. Bob, it's one of the reasons why I'll continue to give back to you and serve and come on your show and wave at the flames of your fire, is because you take action.
Thank
And
you.
you taking action is why your coaching business is growing. It's why you're speaking. It's why you're doing all these things. It's because you continue to take action.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Ben. And it's been a pleasure to be around you and to when I talk to the guys a lot, guys and girls, the coach, and I'm always saying, get in the right rooms. You got to get in the right rooms. And I feel like the rooms that I've gotten in with you, I met guys like Chris Welton, that he wrote his book, One Jordan. Thanks to meeting Chris, and I said, geez, you're writing a book? He goes, yeah. And I checked it out, talked with you. My book should be out in the next 2 months, and it's called Find Your Edge. All right.
I love it.
So it's going to be pretty cool. So I couldn't be in a better spot for having run into you. I think the way we met was at the contractor fight event.
With Tom Reber. Amazing. One of the greatest human beings. You talk about giving and serving and all the things we're talking about. That is Tom Reber. I mean, he's a remarkable human being.
Another rising tide lifts all boats kind of guy. And you get in this business and it's, it's awfully hard to be original in the personal development business. You can put the John Maxwell books up and all the stuff and all the quotes and all that. But it truly comes down to who do you know that wants to help you? And I always say this, just like you said, we come from a place of service, and I lead with, how can I help the most people? And that's always served me well, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. So, and I appreciate you instilling that in me. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, you're doing your thing, you're 46 years old, kids are in school, want to see their games, things are getting busy for you, my friend, right? What's next for Ben Newman? Where are you headed?
I'm headed to as many of those basketball games as I can get to. And I'll define that a little more clearly. So I've reached a point, and it's been a huge blessing. I now in the business, which is not run by myself. We have a team of over 10 unbelievably dedicated individuals that, create leverage and additional impact. And, that doesn't even include the speakers and coaches that we can send opportunities to. But, those 10 core individuals, we get to fight every single day. And it allows me to do the things that I want to do. And oftentimes I say no, which is a lot. Yeah. But when I say no, we've now built a leveraged organization where we can still have impact. And that allows me to go to those basketball games that I want to go to and to do the things that I want to do and be home when I want to be home, but also continue to still have the impact that I love having. But that's come. Many people would want what I just said, but that's come with long obedience in the same direction with aggressive patience. So I had a vision 8-9 years ago to honor our brand and get paid to say no. And at that point in time, there was no BNC speakers. There was no BNC coaching. There weren't these entities and leverage points that now exist. And so from that first speech ever in 2006 to now, it's constantly finding how can we create impact, but still different than most, do the things I want to do to be the best dad and husband I can be. And yes, I still miss things. Yes, I still screw up as a husband and a father, but I can promise you one thing. I can look my kids in the eyes and say, guys, I'm always trying to do the best I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's all that any kid could ask. I can tell you firsthand, my folks were always at my games. They'll see this. And it's all, and I've been very vocal about how nice it always was, even if I didn't realize it at the time, to be able to look up in the stands and know at least one, most times both, were there. And I think there were some years my dad took his vacation an hour at a time, probably my mom too, to get to a 30 game because it was important. And then that's instilled in me, and I've carried that forward, and that's how I parent. And so I'm glad to see you do the same.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful to hear that. My wife and I, we got 2 kids that are playing varsity basketball. My daughter, who's 14, she's a freshman, and my son, who's a junior. And so it pains me to just hear what you said, which is at least one of us were there, because we're now stuck with calendars where there's overlap. So we're going to be having to make it, at least there'll be one of us at each game, but we will make them all.
It's important. You know that. So But I appreciate it, and I more wanted to get on here and just shoot the breeze with you. Thank you for everything you do, not just for me, but for everyone else in the community. When I started this podcast, I originally called it "Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things," and I since rebranded it as the Summit because that just made more sense. But you truly are that to me, just an ordinary guy doing extraordinary things. Uh, two questions I like to leave people with, and you can thank yourself for this one. The first one is, what is your edge? And the second one is, what do you want people to know?
Well, I think for me, the edge is continuing to stay uncomfortable, right? Constantly pushing yourself to that edge where you look over with that willingness to do whatever it takes. You
Right.
know, I had Conzo Martin when I worked with him at the University of Missouri basketball program. I once asked him one time. I said, Coach Martin, I said, what's the best lesson you ever learned? He said, oh, it came from my grandma. And my granny used to tell me, Granny Whittier. He said, Granny Whittier would say, it takes what it takes. If you're making chicken soup, it takes what it takes. If you're trying to win a basketball game, it takes what it takes. And when I think you go into that edge, it takes what it takes. It's uncomfortable. It's hard. You look down, there's fears, there's doubts, but you just go to that uncomfortable place knowing that that's where your growth lies. And the last thing I'd want people to know about me is the greatest life lesson I've ever learned, which came from my mom. It's not how long you live, it's how you choose to live your life. And every opportunity I have to spend time with, friends and colleagues and partners like you is, to really use that time to hopefully empower or inspire somebody else to choose to live the best life they can be, because that's the best life lesson I ever learned.
Yeah. Good stuff, Ben. I appreciate you. Um, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. When I texted you guys, I asked Ben, hey, I finally got the courage to say, I'm going to ask two people I was going to ask to be on my podcast, Tom Reber and Ben Newman. Literally, you both took about 38 seconds to reply and say yes. And I said, well, there's a lesson. If you want something, ask for it.
Well, I appreciate you. Like I had mentioned, your courage and your willingness to take action to make a difference. It's an easy yes. And I appreciate you, Bob.
Thanks,
Keep
Ben.
taking people to the edge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got great stuff happening, guys. Ben doesn't even know this yet, but our next Edge event is called the Edge Live, is going to be February 22nd, right here in Maine, in Portland, Maine. So we're looking to sell that one out. I've got a flyer being made. The announcement's being made in the next couple of days. So you heard it here first. And Ben, I appreciate everything you've done for me to kind of push me to the edge, where it originally came from. That one conversation at Gillette changed my life, and I'll be forever grateful. Thank you for being on.
Bob, we're in this fight together. Thank you for having me.
Take care, my friend. Thanks, guys. This has been the
You
Summit
too.
Podcast. One of my favorites. Thanks again, Ben. Take care.
Thank you.